Hey guys, hope you're doing well and staying safe and healthy and sane, finding ways to keep yourself occupied while we're all stuck mostly indoors during these crazy times. I've certainly been reminiscing about all of the travel I was doing last year, and it's crazy how in such a short time everything can change so dramatically. I went to New Zealand in August of last year, so it was a few months ago, but still pretty recent, and I had all this footage, so I figured why not? What else do we have to do? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, especially if you're someone like me, just daydreaming about all the places you're gonna go whenever we finally get to travel again. After 18 hours on an airplane, I finally landed in Auckland, New Zealand. I got to spend a few hours catching up on sleep in this tiny budget airport hotel before heading off to Queenstown. When I was planning this trip, I didn't realize I was actually going to like Queenstown as much as I did. One of my favorite parts of the city was taking the cable car up to this viewpoint and seeing this absolutely gorgeous view of the bay and the mountains in the background. And of course, I grabbed some mulled wine at the cafe. I had chosen to stay in Queenstown because where I really wanted to go was Milford Sound. It's about a 4-hour journey to get there, so I found a combination boat and bus tour to take me to the park. They stopped at a few places around the way for some gorgeous views, talking about all these relations to Lord of the Rings, which of course I didn't understand, but it was beautiful scenery and definitely worth the stop. This video doesn't even do it justice, but those towering mountains around the water's edge were so stunning. The boat drove right up to some of the waterfalls, and we got to see the rainbows they made as they came crashing down the sides of the mountains. On the ride, I saw a bunch of dolphins and even a penguin. After staying 2 nights in Queenstown, I planned on driving up to Franz Josef to see the glaciers. There was actually an earthquake in Queenstown the night before, and when I got up to the road leading to Franz Josef, it was closed because of a rock slide. I had very limited time to get there, and so I canceled all of my plans and headed to Wanaka instead. Staying 2 nights in Wanaka was probably the best thing that happened to this trip. I'd been really excited to do the helicopter hike in Franz Josef, so since that wasn't going to happen, I booked a helicopter tour in Wanaka the next day instead. I had never been in a helicopter before, and this was probably one of the craziest and most amazing experiences I've ever had. We flew all through the mountains and made 2 alpine landings and got to get out and just walk in the snow on top of these crazy mountains overlooking the whole Wanaka Lake. It was really beautiful and something I definitely won't forget. Another thing I was really excited to do was hike Roy's Peak. I'd read a little bit about this hiking trail before coming to New Zealand, and unfortunately the way I was planning to travel just didn't give me enough time to do the hike. It's a pretty long hike and took me probably 5 hours to complete round trip. When you get to the top of the hike, there's just this amazing viewpoint that everyone wants to take a picture at. I've seen photos of this line backing up so that it's super long to go and get your picture taken. Lucky for me, when I got to the top, it was completely empty and this guy was nice enough to take my photo. And I was so happy to have gotten to do this hike and see the absolutely gorgeous view at the top. The next morning, I was back in my car early because I had to drive all the way to Christchurch in order to catch a flight later that evening to Wellington. There were plenty of interesting views along the way and places to stop and take photos that kept me entertained pretty much the whole drive there. Domestic flights in New Zealand are way different than flights in the US. I was so surprised at the minimal security that you had to go through to get into the airport. It was kind of refreshing to be able to get into the airport and get on your plane so quickly. When I got to Wellington that night, it was pretty late already, so I hopped in an Uber and headed to my very cute little Airbnb.
Child, I know you're hurt and you can't let go. It's not your fault and you don't deserve.
The next morning, I really got to see the gorgeous view that this studio apartment had over Wellington. I took an Uber downtown while I had the time to just kind of walk around the town, and I really got to experience why Wellington gets the name Windy Wellington.
I know you tried so hard. I know you've done your part. It's not fair.
Later that day, I drove north to Mt.Tongarrio, where I had a hike planned the next day. There was sleet and snow and really strong wind going as we tried to hike with our ice axes. I wish I had taken more videos, but honestly, I couldn't take my hands out of my mittens long enough to turn on my camera. After that crazy adventure, I continued heading north to Waiheke Island, where I had some much-deserved wine touring and delicious food. It was off-season here because I was traveling in winter, but there were still plenty of wineries open. It was a great day for just walking around between wineries and sitting outside, sipping some wine and enjoying the views.
Yeah, it hurts a bit. I won't pretend that it doesn't matter that you're with someone else. In a way, that's how it's supposed to be. If I'm unable to make you happy, then it's for the better that you are not with me. That's why I wrote you a letter, 'cause you see, I write so much better than I speak. And I need to tell you, you were my best friend till the end. I hope I'll be happy without you, but right now I don't know what to do. It's hard to get over, you chose someone else, a new best friend.
The last stop on my New Zealand road trip was Auckland. Here I stayed in another really cute Airbnb. During the day, I went and checked out this really cool greenhouse out in a park in the city. And later in that day, I went up one of the tallest buildings in Auckland to see this nice viewpoint.
What was wrong with me? I can't deny. I took you for granted. You finally had enough. That's why I wrote you a letter, 'cause you see, I write so much better than I speak. And I need to tell you.
I stayed at the top of the building to watch the sunset and see Auckland slowly transition from day to night. I was actually visiting Auckland during their restaurant week, so I went ahead and had my own 4-course dinner for myself and took advantage of some of this modern cuisine they were cooking up here during their restaurant week. From there, my New Zealand road trip sadly came to an end. It was time to head back to Doha, so I spent about 19 hours in Melbourne before hopping on another plane through Colombo, Sri Lanka, back to Doha. Luckily, on Sri Lankan Airways, I was able to bid for a very low-priced upgrade to business class, so I enjoyed my flight back home a little bit more than the one here, even though it was still super long. I really loved experiencing the New Zealand winter and traveling in the off-season. It made it a lot less touristy. New Zealand has a ton to offer in terms of outdoor activities and adventures, and I hope that someday I'll be able to come back and see even more of this country.